got some extra free time today, so I figured I'd do another quick one. So, one of the things that is, I think, well within Satan's vested interest regarding this end times delusion that's coming upon us right now, and I'm talking to believers, not the rest of the world. The rest of the world, they want this. They're down for it, 100%. There's the reason why it's said that the whole world will worship the beast. So, it's not that it'll be the whole world, it'll be the whole unbelieving world, and it will feel like literally everybody. Now, that being said, there are those out there that have such a short-sighted view of Scripture that they not only believe in nonsense like OSAS, once saved, always saved, and pre-trib rapture, and a couple other really horrifically stupid things, but they also have this notion in their mind that if a person or entity somehow fills one perceived piece of Scripture about who the Antichrist might be, or who Babylon might be, or any of these things, that somehow automatically seals it, right? The issue there is Antichrist, for example, is one of the things that we have so much information in the Bible front to back about how and who he's going to be, right? There are plenty of people out there we can call the son of Satan. There are plenty of people out there that we can call Antichrists, with an S at the end, plural. But then in the Greek, we very clearly, very, very clearly, have a definite article put in front of the man of lawlessness. Paul goes out of his way. John goes out of his way to describe the man of lawlessness. It is a person. It is a singular human being / likely Nephilim, engendered by Satan. And he has, we have all of Daniel, right? We have the dual prophecy regarding Satan and his son, Antichrist, in Isaiah 14 and Ezekiel 28. We have the king of Babylon, we have the king of Tyre, we have all these different kings of all these different places that at one point or another were considered to be like the grand center of power in the world that is led by an evil ruler, Antiochus and Daniel, right? We have all of these different examples, Pharaoh in Egypt, that all line up to describe one uniquely evil and special personality that will encompass darn near the entirety of how and who Antichrist really is, right? So, well, first off, most people don't know this, and I have done videos on all of this stuff, so please feel free, if you get bored, look through, type in Antichrist when you search my channel. You'll see so many videos, but he's Jewish. Not that he is from the tribe of Judah. There's actually every indication that he's from the tribe of Dan, and I think I'll put that video in the description so you guys can see. The Prophecies of Jacob, a few other places. The fact that the tribe of Dan is missing from the 144,000. There's a few different, like I said, a few different places, and again, I go over all of that in the video, but he is from Dan. Likely will be claiming to be from Judah, just because there's some biblical prowess that he's going after. Antichrist not only means against Christ, but it also means replacement Christ, replacement Messiah, really. So it does stand to reason that he will likely feign these things. That's an assumption on my part, but I don't think it's... Satan's always busy trying to copy what God does while replacing it and trying to feed us evil nonsense, so we'll follow him instead. So it would stand to reason that that's the case. I would bet important things on that anyway. Again, not prophecy, just saying. He is described as a small power on the earth that slowly grows to greater prominence than the original 7 horns. This is in Daniel also, the talk of the beasts with the 7 horns. He is the 8th that grows small, starts out small and grows to a greater position than any of them. And these are, as we come to find out in the book of Revelation, the other leaders of revived Rome, 7 nations of revived Rome, and the 3, so I guess it's 10 horns, pardon me, the 3 horns of the south, right? So he will eventually overtake all of them in power and prominence and prestige, if you will, on a worldwide scale. He is Babylonian initially. He is specifically said as the king of Babylon to have killed his own people. He is not. A lot of people want to say that Russia, Turkey, Iran, all these places might actually be, or even the Roman Catholic Church could be Mystery Babylon. But unfortunately, Babylon is not only described as the epicenter of the world, and I'm sorry, there's no other country on the earth that has the power the United States does. And we could quickly, with our technological prowess, our land mass, our overall financial stability, relatively speaking, I'm not saying we're anywhere near where we should be or what we should be, but on a world scale, we control way more than we should. And if we're not the hammer of the earth, the same way that Nebuchadnezzar's Babylon was at the time, I'm a monkey's uncle, right? There's a few other things. Again, I'll put that one in the description because you guys should know that Babylon very much is only, I'm sorry, at this point in history, the only potential, the only possibility could be the United States. The way that Antichrist comes to power is not just illegally, but popularly, right? When Antiochus, or Antiochus, however you want to say it, when he came to power, I believe he was subverting a cousin or a relative of some kind, his uncle, something like that. I can't remember the exact story. I studied Daniel pretty hard for a while, but essentially, someone was out of town, Antiochus snuck in and grew to such political prominence that the people accepted him wholeheartedly, such to the point that he even had money minted with his face on it and handed it out, and made friends with any and everybody that was willing to accept Greek culture, kind of the same way Antichrist will make friends with everybody who accepts his nonsense view of the world and his unchristian fake Christianity that he will sell. And there's every indication, by the way, that it will be a hybrid of a Judaistic Christianity, remember, because of the description of the type of religious practices that people will have in the end times by Paul, forbidding marriage and strange foods and all these things, restrictive practices. I mean, there's a lot of that stuff going on right now. But what with the troubles that are coming upon the earth and the way that food is being destroyed, it does stand to reason that at some point, all this fake meat and all these other things, all this other silly nonsense will come into play. Not that that is, 1-for-1 equal to what the old Jewish prescriptions for food was, but it'll have some likeness to that. So comes to power illegally but popularly, Jewish, from Babylon, from the United States, starts out small, grows to great prominence, right? He can't start as like a senator or something. Like, senators are popular on a world scale, people. That doesn't mean that they're one of the horns of Europe, but is it all that difficult to say that our, Speaker of the House hasn't more political prominence on a world scale than like the president or prime minister of any European country? Very much they do. So I don't even think technically any one of our standing, even pseudo-popular politicians could technically qualify at this point, because they're not starting out at that small position. Could they be a pundit? Maybe. Could they be somebody that initially was seen as hated, but eventually comes out and has a bunch of quote-unquote reasonable things to say that everybody can agree with and get on board with? What happens if, the King of the South, I honestly, and again, I said this in my last video, I'll notate these videos here, but the King of the South is a figure that is supported by the three horns of the South, the three major nations of the Southern Kingdom that goes against the Northern Kingdom during the Antichrist's crusade, if you will. What if he grows to power first? And the way that Antichrist comes to power is by being, at first, sociologically, societally against what the King of the South stands for and whatnot. And they're both at odds, right? Because right now, again, religions, faith, genetics, whatever aside, no two sets of nations fight harder than Islam versus Israel. Let's just be frank, right? And if eventually the Antichrist ends up as, ruler in Jerusalem, sitting in the temple, him being Jewish actually makes total sense, that he will at least initially be accepted by the non-believing masses of that time in Jerusalem, in Israel, right? So the fact that he is against the King of the South from the very beginning, and he grows to prominence by maybe perhaps being the answer to the King of the South, and perhaps a lot of the social mores that plague our country that I'm still convinced are being set up for him to fix, quote unquote, fix. I keep doing that, but I don't know how else to put it. There's, I'm sure, some that I'm missing here too. But essentially, Antichrist has a number of different prophecies that have to line up, and I've already said this in the video, so I'm going to say it again, that all have to come to play at once, right? He has to have a God that's never been worshipped before. It has to not be the one that women desire, which I'm convinced is feminism, which means he's likely on the slightly conservative side of things. But again, that would stand to reason, because where are the Christians? Those of us that are political, I'm not political anymore, but those of us that are political would, I think, in a very common sense way, say, if in fact all things were equal and politics did represent morality on some level, it would only stand to reason that Christians would only be conservative. I think that's a fair statement. I think if politics were fair, being an actual conservative as a Christian would be reasonable. There may have been a time where that was the case too. But let's not kid ourselves. Antichrist is coming after believers first. He will appeal to the peace and safety and the miraculous bewilderment, if you will, of the unbeliever in very different fashion. Much the same way that, well, I just said in my last video, but the false prophet, he's clearly making inroads with both sides. He's friends with both sides. He's trying to play this middle ground and pretend like on one level he's not a globalist or whatever, but on the other end is making friends with obvious fascists and communists and allowing them to run his business, right? So there will be a certain amount of ecumenical behavior having to do with Antichrist, but I think it will be more based on reason and fear, and they will follow him not only out of those reasonings, but also the miraculous side of things, because everybody is addicted to technology, right? And if what I said about AI lines up, and again, this is aside from prophecy, although to me it all kind of makes sense and only points in one direction. Again, not a prophetic statement, but it would only stand to reason that that would be one of the major inroads that he would have with unbelievers, by being able to control technology, protect them from all the things that leave them in fear, like the fact that AI is being given so much power, it's ridiculous. What if by using AI and all of his super connective miraculous power, hypothetical, that he were able to stop, like, say, a series of 9/11 type attacks on the United States and the West in general, right? So that was all hypothetical, by the way. That being said, if one side seems to fit, you must fit the pieces. All the sides of the piece of the puzzle must fit perfectly in place. Otherwise, you can't qualify. So for those that want to say that it's the Clintons, for those that want to say it's the Obamas, for those that want to say it's the Soroses, for those that want to say it's the Trumps, for those that want to say it's anybody who's on the world scale right now that doesn't perfectly fill all the rest of these, because even Trump, guys, Trump had a 7-year treaty he was trying to set up with Israel. Of course, it fell through. The Abraham Accords were only modestly successful, at least, again, on a worldly scale. I'm sure it was all set up for nonsense. And that doesn't mean it couldn't be him. But the small horn thing kind of does mean it couldn't be him, because he's not a small horn. He's actually been a pretty large horn even before he was a politician, because of all of his social prowess and his non-political popularity that existed before he was president. So we need to be sober. We need to look at things as roundly as possible. I will put these videos in there so that you guys can see a much more comprehensive picture about who and how Antichrist is. And we need to accept all of Scripture. We can't just accept the parts that we like. If that's the case, then being one-sided and essentially telling the Bible and the Lord how it's supposed to be would be okay, but that would also mean things like once saved, always saved, and pre-trib rapture and whatnot are legitimate ideas, and they are biblically unfounded. So anyhow, let me know what you think, guys. This is something that's coming up upon us, and again, sobriety of mind, the desire and well, we're commanded to not be deceived, but we should desire to not be deceived. We should desire to look into these things deeply, expect and accept all of them, not just some, one, or a little bit. And remember, there's the Christ, there's the Christ, there's the Christ. There's going to be a bunch of this nonsense that's going on beforehand. And there has been, for the last 2,000 years, many false messiahs. There may be some more before it actually pops off, but I think we're coming on to a time where Satan has backed off on the religious side of things and is starting to turn it more into a techno-religious attack, and I think it's reasonable to assume that's where things are going. But that doesn't discount any of the things that I've said. You know, there are more, by the way. This is not every prophecy that has to do with the Antichrist. These are just some that when people ask me if this person qualifies or that person qualifies, well, I say he might fit here, but he certainly doesn't fit here. He has to fit all of them, and we need to remember these things. We need to hold on to it. We need to take the word at its full description and full picture. We need to take all of the word, not just the parts we like. Comment down below. Let me know what you think. Like, share, subscribe, all that stuff. I hope you guys are doing well. I hope you are succeeding in this junky economic climate. It's not good right now. It's not easy. I definitely am. I'm definitely on the struggling side of things, but it is all intentional, and it's all for the good. And no matter how difficult it is to accept, it is true, and we need to keep going. Anyway, guys, talk to you soon.